My name is Noah, and I'm the CEO of the Israeli Bitcoin Association. I just wanted to say a few words about the place you are in, which is the Bitcoin Embassy. The embassy is a community center for people who are into Bitcoin and for people who don't know they're into Bitcoin and digital currencies and blockchain and so on. And basically what we do is that we have volunteers here called ambassadors, which help out newcomers and help them whatever they need, ask questions about Bitcoin, open a wallet, solve technical problems or whatever, just to onboard easier. Because I don't know if you know, in this decentralized world, there's no CEO of Bitcoin and there's no someone with the customer services. So we, the community, are the service for whoever comes here and want to get the accurate information, and so they won't make mistakes in this field. And so they can also write to us and so on. But this is basically every day is for newcomers, and every Sunday we have a community meetup. Sometimes we have lectures, sometimes it's just a free meetup. So everybody is welcome to join us every Sunday at around 7, which is called Satoshi Square. And the Israeli Bitcoin Association is an NGO that promotes Bitcoin in Israel, where usually we are in Hebrew, not in English, and we want to help the people in Israel with its special problems, like the banking system in Israel and so on and so forth. So we are working with the regulators in Israel, and we are working with the media in Israel, and to have a better knowledge and a lot of education in Hebrew for the Israeli community and Israeli people wherever. So this is us. No, it's also fine. Yes, if you write me in English, I'll understand, and I'll probably help out. It depends on what you say. And so just look up Israeli Bitcoin Association, and you can contact us through the website. We're everywhere: Twitter, Facebook, wherever. So I hope you all enjoy and educate yourself about energy. I know I'm not at all as informed as I should be about this subject, so I hope to learn a lot this evening. Thank you for coming.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. My name is Itai Golan. I'm from Ignite the Spark. Bless you. And we're doing an interesting collaboration with the Israeli Bitcoin Association today. First meetup in its kind. So I'm from Ignite the Spark board, one of the board members. Ignite the Spark is an energy tech ecosystem in Israel, a platform for connecting industry professionals, fostering collaborations, being a vibrant hub to knowledge exchange, and driving the growth of the whole energy tech ecosystem in Israel and beyond by creating events, unique programs, and much more events like that. So nice to see you all here and to have this nice collaboration with the other people that will show up in here. So today, next one to come up is Shauli Rejwan. Shauli is a he's a co-founder and managing partner in masterkey.vc. Shauli is a serial entrepreneur in crypto, among other successful projects. He co-founded the Israeli Crypto, Blockchain, and Web3 Companies Forum. Shauli, please.
Hello. I'm really happy to see you all. I'm actually really excited from this event and this meetup. For me, it's really special. I'm in Bitcoin for quite a long time. In 2017, I kind of understood that there is underlying something that many people don't understand. And in 2018, I started investing as a professional investor in one of the VCs, climate VC, or more energy related one. And for me, to get into a moment that we are doing a fusion of colliding these two communities together, it's a really exciting moment. So thank you everybody for for making it, and to Eshel, and for all the good people who worked hard to make it. So about myself, I'm a managing partner of masterkey.vc. We're a crypto, blockchain, deep infrastructure technologies VC, which means that we're investing in these areas. And something else that we're also doing is we're supporting the off-grid solutions for crypto, for Bitcoin. So that's some of the things that we will review today and what are the opportunities. Aside to that, I co-founded the Israeli Companies Forum, Blockchain Companies Forum, together with Yoni Fishman and the Bitcoin Association. And I'm also a co-founder of ICC, which is one of the largest communities here in Israel for crypto. But I highly recommend you all to come to this place during the week time. Every Sunday after 7 o'clock, we're doing Satoshi Square meeting, which is kind of like a community gathering. And everybody can come learn from people that are a long time in the industry, people who are just first-time joiners, and just feel free to come here more. So let's start. So the Bitcoin blockchain, it's basically a database. What is Bitcoin, right? Like we all know that it's a digital cash, and I'm not going to review exactly how Bitcoin works and how it's operated, because it's much more complicated to go with that. But just to understand that Bitcoin basically is a new monetary system. It's a digital cash, and the back of the digital cash, or like the asset itself, called Bitcoin, but the backbone of it calls blockchain. So as you can see here, that's a way to like a UX, UI, that's kind of like presenting you in easy way what's the blockchain look like. So in a specific time, there are transactions who are getting into a block, and you can see that the blocks that are waiting for confirmation compared to the ones that were already confirmed. That's the cost, or like you can see how many transactions are waiting now. Everything in Bitcoin is transparent. And as you can see, the blockchain is a network, is a database, is a value slash community. It's one standard, it's open source, so everybody can see it. And it works with incentive model. And that incentive model, actually the reason that we're all here. So that incentive model, it's the consensus, how decisions are being made on the Bitcoin blockchain, which means you see all these transactions out there, and you need to decide which one you're approving or not. And to make it really like feasible, and like to make it that people, like how you can decide if something is wrong or not, you want someone to make effort. So unlike centralized solutions that I can decide if I want to approve something or not, when it's decentralized and people are competing with each other, or like in our case, computers are competing with each other, and they need to compete, first of all, to who is going to be the first one to solve an equation. Beside that, they want to make it basically just like to get money for that. And the reason that miners are doing it, as you can see, it's for getting a reward, which we'll speak about it in a minute, and also to get these fees. But that proof of work and the Bitcoin blockchain, it created a whole new universe. And it's a universe of opportunities. Some of them are just being feasible now. But why do we really need all this energy? Basically what we said, that computers are competing with each other to solve an equation, or like to solve a puzzle in the Bitcoin case. And as you can understand that as we have more participants, it means that the Bitcoin blockchain is more secure. Some people think that, and that's something wrong, that people think that Bitcoin is wasting energy, right? We all probably seen, or we all probably heard that Bitcoin uses a lot of energy, and it doesn't, and it's not really needed. I'm saying that it's wrong. Like, and I will amplify it by this simple example. How many runners do you see in the Olympic or in this competition? So we can see that there are at least 9 runners, right? Because like you know that 3, so there was 1 and 2, and at least 9 runners. How many of them gonna win? Only 1. Does it mean that all other waste their energy? And I will say that, no. They didn't waste their energy. They actually make the one who won to be at his best. You can't really be at your best if someone is not next to you, or like someone is not competing to you. And that's exactly what happened in the Bitcoin blockchain. We have a lot of miners that are competing with each other. Only one is winning every time. Does it mean that all the other wasted their energy? No. They made him to be the best, and they pushed him to the edge. So that's the example. So let's talk about the key facts. In the early days of Bitcoin, there weren't so many miners. Why? Because the distribution of Bitcoin was not that big. But now, when the ecosystem is growing, and as you can see, in the early days, when you're comparing the graph to amount of terawatts, it was pretty low. But in July 2022, it was over 220 terawatt hour, which is, if we put it compared to other countries, it's in the top 30 countries in the world in regards to energy consumption. That's an opportunity. So when you're looking on opportunities for the entrepreneurs here, I hope you all know that if you're looking at an opportunity, or like you want to understand if an opportunity is feasible, you need to know that there is a demand, right? Like you can come with solution, or can bring a solution to a market, but you need that market to have demand. If there is no demand in that market, no one needs that solution. So in our case, you can see that Bitcoin consume about energy, the equivalent amount of energy as Thailand. Today it's lower because the Bitcoin price went down. And that's why you can see also the correlation between the Bitcoin energy consumption to the Bitcoin price. Some other things that important to know, that in almost 335 days, in about 335 days, we will experience the Bitcoin halving. That's part of the things that I will not going to explain too much today. But every 4 years, or about 210,000 blocks, there is inflation. The inflation in Bitcoin is fixed, and every 210,000 blocks, the inflation goes in half, and which means the incentive for miners is going in half. These days, we're talking about 6.75 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. That's the reward that miners are getting for finding a block. And that reward going to be a half in about 335 days. So where all the energy comes from? As you can see, there are research about everything that comes in crypto. Most of it because it's all transparent. Luckily, sadly, our research and in the research that I found ends in about 2 years ago, August 21. And as you can see, that in the early days, it mainly came from hydraulic and other renewable. But as times passed, and the fact that Bitcoin price went up and up, miners became to be much more institutionalized, which means that they're not making it like people are mining from their home or their small offices. They have a whole operation that are making mining, and that's why they have to trust or rely on other fossil fuels. So let's jump into cases of like what are the opportunities out there and what we can see that people are doing with that energy. So company named Crosso. Someone heard about it? That's probably one of the largest companies that the majority of people didn't hear about. What's happening here? Okay. It's done, it's stable now. It's probably one of the largest companies that no one heard about it. And you know why most people didn't hear about it? Because it's a great company. So that's another thing. But this company, basically what you're doing, when you're extracting natural gas, do you know what's methane, right? That is side effect of like when you're extracting natural gas. These guys, and today, do you know what gas rigs are doing? Flaring. Besides flaring, they also need to pay for filters because there is a lot of, it's pretty highly regulated area. Many, like you need to actually to move it, to clean it before you're sending it into the air. And that process costs a lot of money. What these guys are doing, they know how to harvest energy from methane. So basically, they're creating databases on the gas rigs or in the water, and they're saving money because they don't have any costs for making the energy, and they're selling databases as servers, as cloud, and beside that, they're also doing mining for Bitcoin. Here you can see some facts about them, like how much methane they're saving from pollution, 99%. NOx, which one of the most critical gases that it's pretty hard to break. They're about 70%, 74%. And their vision actually, it's to make the world better, like to create computing much cleaner to the world. Israeli company, chain reaction. Luckily, finally, one of our Israelis representatives in the industry went out from stealth. That happened just a few weeks ago. They raised about $70 million. They call it round C, in total funding of $115 million. But my partner Nir in the company's forum was saying that that's not enough. How many employees they have? Because that's the real impact. So they have over 150 employees here in Israel. So that's pretty significant. And their vision is to empower databases and to make the world cleaner. Unlike the other side when we talked, these guys are making more efficient miner, which means that it can make many more calculations in the same consumption or the energy consumption. Or you can say that it's consumed less energy compared to others, but it's only the way you're looking at it. Another opportunity, and here I think that that's kind of like the areas that most people don't really understand, and it's important to talk about, and that's grid stabilization. As you know, people are coming from energy, that there is the demand, the energy demand. Everybody knows that in the mornings we have the peaks, and in the night. So basically, that's the energy demand. In mining, we can work on the other side. Basically, when we have the low for the energy that's been produced, we can turn on more miners. And why that's much more simple than other things? First of all, compared to almost any other system, let's take an example of databases. What will happen if I'm going to shut down a data center? It means that all the computers or all the clouds that are connected to that data center could not operate. But in mining, what wrong will happen if I'm going to shut down a data center? Not much. It just means that some area will not mine. On the other hand, when you're comparing to nuclear plants, so I don't know if someone here saw the scene in Chernobyl, the video, the show. So if you remember in the first scene, in the first day, what's happening that they have overproduction, right? And then the nuclear plant explodes. And basically that's what we're talking on in regards to grid stability. You always need to produce to similar amount for your demands. And when you're talking about nuclear plants or coal plants or combinations, it always takes time to make these shifts. You can't do anything instantly. But in mining, you can do it in 30 seconds, under 30 seconds. So there is nothing to compare to that. The first ones who actually saw that opportunities, it's in Texas last summer. First of all, I don't know if you know, but there is a lot of mining happening in Texas. Last summer, they had some issues. they had their power plants couldn't produce the amount of energy that people needed to consume. Why? Because they had a heat wave. So the mayor, or you know what to say, like the mayor of Texas, reached the miner and asked them to shut down the machine and to sell the electricity to the grid. So basically, we're talking on grid stabilization and also for additional production in case that the people needs it. And that's what happened. Yeah, so basically, I see the opportunity here. I hope you all understand it, and we'll have a fun day today. Thank you.
So thank you to Shauli. It was really nice, and really nice to see the connections between the fields, because there are completely two different fields, and there are lots of connections as we see at that presentation. Coming up will be Yoni Fishman. He's a COO in greentech. He's coming here to Israel from Netherlands, right? So we all say thank you for coming. You will talk about the next generation immersion solution that greentech is building and providing, and how it is used in the Web 3.0 industry. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So first of all, thank you, Shauli, for a great introduction. Sure. So thank you, Shauli, for a great introduction. I think you covered some good topics. Hopefully, I'll try to zoom in on a few of them. So short, and thank you, of course, for the Israeli Embassy, Bitcoin Embassy, and Ignite for organizing this event. I'll be speaking, so first of all, I'm Yoni, and nice to meet you all. I'm CEO and co-founder of greentech. A little bit about myself. I've been in the mining industry since 2017. Greentech is a more recent project of ours. It's our subsidiary, where we focus more on the technology, and I'll expand more on that in a bit. And I'll be focusing more about how really Bitcoin mining can help to propel the renewable energy industry forward, and how it can really help solve some solutions. So I'm going to zoom in on a couple of challenges that we have in the energy industry. As you know, there's a lot of investment coming into renewable energies. And we're having quite significant problems. I'll expand more in the future slides. And the second topic and the second challenge is fossil fuel heating, which is basically how we generate our heat today. So regarding the heat, these numbers might come as a surprise to you, but globally we're looking at 50% of energy that is used to generate heat for both industrial and residential purposes. And up to 90% of that heat is coming still from fossil fuels. Now, we're not speaking about some developing countries, or we're speaking really around the corner as well. We're looking at Northern Europe, at Finland, at Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway. A lot of the heat is actually still coming from burning fossil fuels, gas, wood, peat, etc. So that's one challenge facing the energy industry as a whole. And I'll expand more about how Bitcoin mining helps to solve that. And then we have stranded renewables. Now, just to introduce the topic, stranded renewables, we're speaking about projects. Renewable energy project can be solar, can be wind, hydro, geothermal, which have an issue with basically different kind of bottlenecks. First of all, they have the issue of demand and supply. A lot of times they have energy that they cannot physically supply to consumers. We're seeing 20, 30, 40% curtailment of the energy assets in different cases. There's a problem with the grid itself, which is not keeping up at all with the expansion, the massive expansion. We're seeing huge amounts of investment and new projects coming on. The grid as the infrastructure, the actual transmission networks are not keeping up. Projects are years and years in the queue to get authorizations. There's a big problem with regulation. It takes them really a long time to get live. And there is the issue of load balancing, which Shauli talked about as well, which basically comes from the fact that a lot of these projects, especially solar and wind, depend on the weather. So there's more sun, more wind, less wind. It affects the production curve, hard to predict, and it creates imbalances in the grid. Now, this imbalances creates, if there's, for example, an overproduction of energy, it creates resistance in their networks. And what happened is with the years, they've developed demand response markets. So their grid operator, the grid manager, is better off paying market players, better off paying them as an incentive to balance the grid, to shut down, to turn up and down responsive. And Bitcoin mining is a big part of that. I'll also expand a bit later. What we're also seeing is curtailed energy assets, and Shauli also used a great example of flare gas, which I will touch on in a bit, which is, you can think of it as untapped energy. It's energy that is out there that is simply not used. It's being wasted, it's creating emissions, and it's a massive issue. Just to show you some numbers, if you look at the numbers of 2022 compared to 2010, the amount of projects that are in the queue, so they're waiting to come live for different reasons, is almost twice the amount of installed capacity. This is just showing you the size of the problem. Next, I'll touch on the Bitcoin mining industry as a whole. So we're getting a lot of negative PR. We're seeing, there's been a lot of talk about how much it's polluting, that it's consuming way too much energy. It's almost like a mid-sized country. But in terms of pollution itself, if we're just comparing to gas flaring, and we could have compared it to any other pollution source, it's really, really small in comparison to the amount of CO2 and methane produced from gas flaring. And if I zoom in a little bit on that, again, to illustrate by mine, if we combine a Bitcoin mining operation with a gas flaring facility, we can see that it's almost 8 to 9 times more effective in reducing the pollution and emissions than if we invest in 1 megawatt of wind and solar. Just to illustrate to you, again, how Bitcoin mining can help to solve the, in general, I think the sustainability, the whole green effort. Let's zoom in on the different trends and why are we not decarbonizing heat? Why are we still burning a lot of fossil fuels? Why are we not moving to electrified heat? Mainly an economic reason. So if you're using electrified heat, such as electric boilers, I think that's the easiest example, whether it's on a residential, whether it's on industrial scale, just to illustrate, in Heineken now in a brewery in Amsterdam just purchased a 10 megawatt boiler. 10 megawatt is if anyone is sending electricity proportion, that's huge. But we're not seeing enough of that. It's just the economic case for electrifying heat. The numbers still don't make sense, so we're seeing a very slow transition towards that. In terms of accelerating renewables, I touched on it before, the grid cannot keep up. To build out transmission capacity takes years, billions of dollars. It's simply not keeping up, more on a government level. So we're seeing, especially in the US, we're seeing a big problem that there's very little interconnection between the states. It's hard to transmit electricity on a large capacity across states. We're seeing that in Europe as well. It's a big issue. It's a big issue. There's something called congestion, where there's specific areas where electricity cannot flow through, so it's creating sort of bottlenecks. Just some of the issues that's facing us. And when we're talking about clean energy and reducing fossil fuels, there's a mismatch between incentives, whether it's demand response, whether it's curtailed energy assets such as flare gas. So how do we solve the decarbonization of heat with Bitcoin mining specifically? So digital heating makes electrification feasible. I'll show you later what we do at greentech is we recycle the heat from Bitcoin mining operations and we provide it to heat consumers in the form of hot water, and basically making the case for, okay, I think I'm stepping on something, making the case for electric heat being feasible. It changes the whole economics of the game. We basically provide discounted heat to the heat consumer. And when the consumer is taking the heat from us, it's basically taking electrified heat. And I'll show you more of our product in a bit. Flexible generation, that's really important. So we can, because we're flexible, we can adjust the production of the heat and the consumption of electricity. We're quite flexible, so we can adjust ourselves to the demand of the heat consumer. That's something also really important in this trend. And we're basically creating little communities, little circular economies of flow of electricity and heat. And I'll show you a bit how that works with an illustration. When we're talking about mining and how it can help to accelerate renewables, if we're looking at energy companies and energy projects, one case is that they have, again, we're speaking to different energy companies. Some of them have up to 40% of the time. They simply don't produce because they don't have anyone to offtake that electricity. The moment you combine a Bitcoin mining operation close by to an energy producer, you're able to provide them the buyer of last resort, as we say. So we're like able to consume a constant load of energy from the energy company. Could be a fixed price, could be a spot price, but that basically gives them a price floor which they can rely on. So there's different models. It gets quite technical. I wouldn't get too much into it. And it supports the grid. So because we're doing what's called load balancing in the US, in Texas, they call it curtailment, we provide services to the grid, helping them balance the grid, and basically, in a way, indirectly also promoting the development of renewable energies. A little bit about mining, just to wrap your hands around it. When we're talking about Bitcoin mining operation, we're talking about a significant capex investment. So we have the actual infrastructures. Usually it's containerized solution, could be warehouse, getting transformers, which is a really expensive part of the investment as well, and the miners themselves, which are the servers. The moment you've invested this capex and you have an operation up and running, your main cost is the electricity. That's your main OpEx. So yes, you're spending some money on maintenance, on project management, or running the operation, but your main cost is energy. And this creates, you can really think of it as a game of energy arbitrage, which is what the industry has become. It's become a game of energy arbitrage. So you can really think of Bitcoin as a tokenization of the energy. And we can talk in a bit also about energy arbitrage. I leave also some time for Q&A in the end, if you'd like to know more. We're seeing a lot of tier one companies entering the mining game. Shell, Exxon, a lot of big companies are now entering the game, the industry, and it's really a recent trend that's been picking up. In my opinion, we're going to see that accelerate. So we're going to see more and more energy companies enter the game because Bitcoin mining provides a very interesting solution for them. So they can combine either flare gas with Bitcoin mining, they can combine their renewable energy production with Bitcoin mining, and it provides an economic incentives. It helps them solve problems. It creates stability, etc. For load balancing as well, like when we set up our operations as a private operation, we do load balancing as an additional revenue stream. So for us, for example, in the Netherlands, we're seeing between 100 and 150,000 euros per megawatt per year just by doing load balancing. And it impacts very little our actual Bitcoin mining operation, so it's an additional revenue stream. Now, if you're talking about an energy producer, it could be a solar park, a wind park, they don't need so much the demand response, the load balancing, because they can do that on a production level. If you travel through Europe, you can see wind turbines not working. You can see maybe 10 in a row and a couple not working. So they can stop it at source. In fact, they're actually big players in the market of load balancing themselves because they can accelerate the production. Shauli had there the slides about the reaction time. So because they can react quickly to signals, they're actually big players in the load balancing market themselves. Storage is interesting. Storage, it's an upcoming trend, but it's really expensive now. So Bitcoin is generating. It's basically a buyer of last resort of their electricity. So when in cases where either they cannot sell electricity, they run it through the Bitcoin mining operation, generating Bitcoins on the way, and offloading the electricity. In other cases, it's also a buyer of last resort, so it creates a price floor. You have a reliable consumer of your energy that you can rely on in the long term to buy your energy in the long term. So we are seeing energy companies entering into joint ventures with Bitcoin mining companies. It's something that we do as well. We're talking to different kind of energy companies now. It's something we've been doing also over the years. we sometimes come in the business model we invest ourselves. So in some cases, all they want to do is offload the electricity at a certain price. In some cases, they also want to be partners in the Bitcoin mining operation. And we're seeing a lot of companies also completely owning the operation. So they also hire companies like us. We do the services turnkey, A to Z, set up an operation. And they're fully own the Bitcoin mining operation because they see the value. You know, the Bitcoin mining industry has been around for years. And now, really in recent years, we're seeing a trend of a lot of energy companies entering the game. Yes, yes, we particularly do. Yeah, so whether we specifically, so the question was whether we specifically take into account the energy mix. Yes, it's very important for us. We have different kind of projects. We try to do most of project renewables, but in some cases, when you're talking about heat recovery, it's also possible that we consume fossil fuels-based energy because we're consuming directly from the grid. So we don't always know the energy mix. But in the heat recovery project, at least we offload the heat, which makes the whole project green. In other cases, of course, when we're talking about solar and wind, it's tricky because we connect to the grid and we connect to the production. So it's also a mix. And I'll show you a case where we work. There's an illustration where we do projects combined with local energy production with gas generators as well. So I'll show that in a bit. A little bit about us. So at greentech, we produce digital infrastructure. So we have our own hardware. R&D and office center is in Amsterdam, and our production is in Rotterdam. We produce containerized solution where we host the Bitcoin miners. I can show you a bit about that. We have our own software in-house, software development. So we have a dashboard. We have our energy arbitration, arbitrage software that we use in-house. None of that software is yet commercial. We simply use it in-house and in our clients' projects. And we do services, so really A to Z services in setting up the whole operation from project engineering stage to getting everything up and running and long-term servicing. The green box is our flagship product. We have a few different products. I don't have the time to show everything. This is our containerized solution for heat recovery. We have a flexible load of up to 1.8 megawatts because we're able to adjust the consumption of the actual miners. So we have a flexible load. That's how we do load balancing as well. It gets interesting because we also have heat as an output. So the more we put electricity into the miners, the more heat we produce. And that's where it gets really interesting. We recover up to 98% of the heat. So just to quickly explain what that is. All the electricity that you put into the miners gets converted into heat. Now, traditionally in the industry, there's been air cooling. Air cooling was the dominant form of cooling the servers. And now in recent years, there's been a trend of immersion. We use immersion cooling. So in those tanks here, there's a fluid. All the miners are submerged into the fluid. It's a dielectric fluid, doesn't conduct electricity. And it's really good at absorbing the heat. So all the heat that is taken off the servers, it heats up the liquid. We run it through those heat exchangers. In essence, there's water in another loop running, and we're heating up water to just save on technical details. We're heating up water. We're strategically locating next to heat consumers, the green boxes, and we're able to provide them hot water up to 60 degrees. We're doing R&D now to get to 80. But that's just a little bit about our product, the green box. A diagram to illustrate, I don't know, we have 2 minutes, so I don't know how much time. It gets really technical. 1 minute. So quickly about this. So you can think of it really like a small circular economy. If we're speaking about the greenhouse owner, he needs heat for his operation. He has, in a lot of cases, what we're seeing in the Netherlands, a CHP, which is a combined heat and power gas generator. They're putting in gas, 50-50 production of electricity and heat. The heat they consume themselves. The electricity they take partly to themselves to use it for light. And usually before we enter the green box, they sell the excess electricity back to the grid at spot prices. The moment we deploy the green box next to, let's say, a greenhouse in this scenario, we're able to consume the electricity either from the CHP, or from the grid. And 96 to 98% of that gets converted into heat, which we then supply back into the greenhouse, leading to a few benefits. I have numbers, and I think in a couple of slides to show you. I'll skip this one because it gets a bit technical, where we're talking about preheating, low-grade heating, heat pump absorption cooling, which is something we're doing R&D on now, and it's using heat to provide cooling. It could be maybe a use case in Israel or somewhere like Florida. I'm going to skip all the technical numbers. A little bit about the application. So we're talking about greenhouses, fish farms, district heating networks, breweries, dryers, any kind of industrial heat consumer, because we're talking about industrial scale. But indirectly, maybe to district heating, that's also heating up homes. We have a project coming up in Finland for district heating. We're hopefully soon announcing a project for a greenhouse in Sweden. We're talking to a brewery right now in the US. We mostly work with greenhouses at the moment. That's our specialty, but really we have quite a wide range of applications. Just to finish off some numbers, just to illustrate to you, one of our projects, this is actually a joint venture with a greenhouse owner in the Netherlands. It's a 4.5 hectare greenhouse producing peppers. We deployed 1.8 megawatts of Bitcoin mining right next to this location. They have a requirement of 10 plus megawatt hours. So note that the unit measurement here is megawatt hours. So if you want to get a yearly value, multiply that by 24 by 365. That's a lot of heat required. They're getting it partially from their CHP by burning gas, partially from the Bitcoin mining operation. They need to run both for different reasons. They're also getting CO2 from the CHP. I won't get into that now. We're able to basically, and they have additional gas boilers, which we rendered useless by giving them the digital heat from Bitcoin mining. They're saving up to 1.3 million cubic meters of gas per year. That's how we circle back into the renewables, how we're saving on emissions. Additional source of heat, a source of earnings from load balancing, 40 euros per megawatt. Again, that's an average number. It's also a fluctuating number. And Bitcoin mining earnings, what we've seen quite over the time, is around this number of 125 euros per megawatt. That's it. I think we don't have time for Q&A, so thank you very much. And yeah, maybe we have time after. Thank you.
Okay, Noah, we will start with you. And of course, anyone can answer any question that you feel that you have something to contribute to the conversation. So as the ambassador of Bitcoin, and assuming that our crowd, part of it comes from the energy and part of it comes from the Bitcoin industry. So just to align everyone, as the ambassador of Bitcoin, do you have any recommendations for people who have no background in Bitcoin and are interested to deep dive inside how to start?
Yeah, usually I get asked like, how much money to put in? Do I need and so on? And I'm just holding people back and saying, stop. You know, we're not recommending anything, and it's kind of a risky kind of area. The whole cryptocurrency is very volatile in price and so on. So what we do recommend here at the embassy and in the Israeli Bitcoin Association is just to try and learn, understand what are the benefits of this decentralized economy. Why? What are the difficulties in the old economy? How come our life are a bit, let's say, disrupted by banks, by central entities, and how can people as people understand that they can operate and have like an alternative to that, okay? And so once I'm going on the saying that it's a concept and it's a social kind of contract, and it's not only about making money, I know that actually it's good to make money. This is the incentive of miners. This is what makes them go green, because they're looking for suppress energy and so on, okay? So it's not a bad thing to make money, okay? But I do think that we cannot promise anyone to make money in this volatile field, and they should first of all learn how to operate, what to do, what does it mean to own your own money, be your own bank, and it's a lot of responsibility, and not make mistakes about it, so they can come here, learn about it, see our courses on YouTube, all this educational information we're giving out, and of course, we have like 13 years of Bitcoin now, so the internet is full of useful information.
Okay, thanks. Sean, for those who have no background in energy, in green energy specifically, what are your recommendations to how to start, how to go into how to learn about this industry?
First, I want to say, I don't know if they hear me, if the microphone is working. Yeah. Okay, so first I want to say thank you as well, before we even start, for Sagit and Itai for putting this off, Shauli and Noah and Yoni that come especially as well, and whoever is attending to this meetup. The energy tech sector and energy in general, I think it's a big and deep ocean. So we are in Ignite Spark and gathering the whole ecosystem from the really early stage of being in the academia to entrepreneurs from the pre-ideation stage to ideation stage, and give opportunity for whoever is less familiar with this ecosystem to be part of this through our online, offline platforms, for unique workshops that we do, and some unique gathering like that can connect some dots between someone would say it's not that connected before. We are around for 4.5 years. We are a non-profit organization and got a lot of opportunities that gather around that. The ecosystem in energy tech is really thriving. We have a lot of opportunities around, and this is the time to be part of this. Whoever is not familiar, we are welcoming every one of you to be part of this, to learn and ask more. Can ask each one of us how to be part. To be in the energy sector and the entrepreneur in this sector, it's a roller coaster, and you need to be prepared for that.
Thanks. Yeah, so it's an opportunity to say that we have a very big community. We're also on LinkedIn and WhatsApp, so if you're interested, we'll give you the details later. So this is a question for all of you. Maybe we'll start with you, Sean. So just let me take the Grand Miser. Sorry. Considering the Bitcoin mining currently consumes an estimated, 130 or even more terawatt hours of electricity annually, surpassing the energy consumption of countries like Netherlands. How can we proactively tackle the environmental impact of this massive energy-intensive process? I know that Yoni touched it a little bit, but maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, we spoke about it, and I think this is kind of the hot topic of this event, how such a big consumer can be something that is sustainability or have a good impact of the environment. And Shauli and Yoni spoke about some unique technologies, and it's important also to emphasize that we might, some of us agree, some of us not agree, here in the audience, here in the panel. As long as we are still using fossil fuels or any energy sources that are not really support our goals for achieving net zero, this is still a far fact from getting to that. We are, of course, want to encourage using more renewables, but this is a big step to do that. And we know it might be imbalance in that. Whatever it's energy consumption from Bitcoin, which is a big consumer, it's important to remember that we need to find a way to make the balance between both of those words. Otherwise, we just perceive ourselves, and we want to make sure that we get this stage in the proper way.
Anyone has something to add?
Yeah, I would love to add to that. I think we will do in the end session.
We will leave some time for questions just in a few minutes. We will open the floor for questions.
It's work? Yeah. So I would like to add to that. In my point of view, like Bitcoin, for some people it might sound weird, but Bitcoin is like the perfect ESG out there. Like basically when we're talking like environmental, sustainable, and governmental. Um, so one of the things that people don't really speaks about is the fact that when we're as a society or humans, every time when we're getting into something new, usually our instincts are the best solution. But what we have to compromise on the engineering tools that are out there. And I will amplify that. Like, do you really think that if we were starting society today, we would use would you do like these huge cables to transmit electricity? No, you would produce it locally. And back then, when we started society, we couldn't have that. Today, we have a lot of engineer tools to do off-grid solutions. And when we are talking about decentralized environment, you don't want to have to be under the rules of the government that can take down your energy, because most of the energy resources are from the government. You want to be off-grid. You want to do it on your own. So you can see that many miners are actually using their own facilities, few solar panels or few water turbines that are next to a river in a place that no one sees, no one knows, and that's where they mine. No one can stop them. And today, when you're thinking about it, society, it brings us new opportunities and it brings us new more things. In Bitcoin, the protocol layer itself, everybody are equal. It doesn't matter if you're a felony, if you're a person, if you're a cat, if you're an alien. As long as you're working based on the Bitcoin rules, you're being treated equally. And that's something that it's huge for us as society. So that's why I'm saying like it's the perfect environmental, sustainable, and governmental tool. Once we all going to start to understand it and understand how to amplify it and use it in our day-to-day, it's going to create a massive change.
I would just like to add on that. It was really greatly said. I don't have much to add. Just some examples, maybe, that people are not so familiar with. We're seeing a lot of vertical integration in the industry. So as Shauli mentioned, really Bitcoin miners going to the source of production, owning the source of production as well, in some cases to be fully independent. Hydro is a really big energy source currently for the Bitcoin mining industry. Hydro is almost clean energy. It's pretty much clean energy. It's not really solar and wind, but it's considered out there, I think, on the environmental impact. It's pretty much green. We're seeing governments as well getting into the game. There's been a big deal signed lately with the Bhutan government. There are hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin mining facility going to be built there with hydro. We're seeing hydro in Africa being combined with Bitcoin mining operations. A lot of flare gas. That's something that's accelerating. Like Crusoe, there's other companies, even the big energy producers, they're getting into that game. We're seeing heat recovery, which I showed you now, which is also...
Why are governments getting into it? Economically, or
it's like when we're talking about deals like with Bhutan, that's when it gets to a government level. So they're not really... I don't think there's any case where the government invested itself, but definitely government-backed companies, big energy producers, which a government have shares in, public companies as well. Abu Dhabi, yeah, there's been a big deal in Dubai recently, also in the Middle East signed Marathon, just 250 million deal. We're seeing really, and we're going to be seeing more of that. So there's going to be more and more examples of Bitcoin miners going to clean energy sources, providing demand response, heat recovery, flare gas. We're seeing a lot of that. That's really where the industry is moving. Also because it's the interests are aligned. So the fossil fuel-based power generations, if we're talking about coal, many people don't know, but there's still a lot of coal being used for electricity production. It's just expensive. In a lot of places, it just still doesn't... Already, the energy from renewables is cheaper. And because Bitcoin miners really care about the bottom line of the energy prices, we're seeing them go away. Also, naturally, the economic incentive are aligned. They're going away from fossil fuels to renewable energy.
Yeah, I would love to add to that. So basically, we have to remember, people are not doing it because they care about Bitcoin. They don't doing it because they care about the environment. They do it for financial incentive. It's profitable. Today, if you're doing mining in big scale, it's about 60% profit. Like you can't do it in a small scale, but you need to do it in a really big scale, and it's highly profitable. Why the reason they're going to renewable? It's because most people here probably knows that renewable are about 25% cheaper compared to fossil fuels. The problem with renewable that they are unstable. We talked about it. Yoni talked about it. And yeah, so and for your question of like why governments are getting into it, because it's attract a lot of capital. What's happening in El Salvador, it's amazing. Basically what we see, it attracted a lot of investments from hedge funds who are penetrating into the country. They're going into their forests. They're creating a mining operations. But when they're doing it, they're taking out the guerrillas. They're taking out the people who are like use that area for crime, and they're bringing their own people for security to clean the area. They're building roads. They're adding lights. Things that it's like actually developing these countries. The countries that doesn't have a tech, doesn't have talent, or doesn't have enough natural resources that they can extract are they're asking people to use their land for something, or to attract capital, and that's the main reason.
At the States as well, right?
Texas.
Yeah, but I think it's important also to mention, I know we're all speaking about the future and how we go decentralized and distributed future. We are all about that and we all support that. But you spoke about the hydroelectric and you spoke about the small microgrids that I wish we have very soon. But it's really important to glorify that it's still right now, for example, take Russia, the second miner, I guess, in the world that have 60% of fossil fuels. So it's really important to amplify the small communities that we want to get them stronger, but still now we're still far from that. And still there is a big way that we need to do.
But there is a trend. There is definitely a trend. We're seeing nuclear energy. There is a trend. I really think in 3-4 years when we speak, most of the Bitcoin miners they will be using green energy.
I hope. I really hope.
More than the TikTok data centers for sure.
If we talk about so many parts of the world, do you want to say something about Israel?
It just doesn't pretty much non-existent in Israel, mainly because of the electricity
solar
price.
Energy a little bit.
The solar, Sean can tell you more about that, but the solar producers struggling to sell their electricity to the grid. In Israel, there's regulation problems. For Bitcoin miners, the electricity price is really what doesn't allow them to work in a place like this, but regulatory environment is a disaster in this country. And can tell more about the solar projects not even be able to come online or not sell electricity.
In general, I think when it comes to regulatory, it's a challenge by itself. We see companies that incentivize this, but we see companies also that forbid that or get any restrictions about it. I don't know, China or big countries like that. In Israel, we have electrical authority that govern and give license for whoever bring and develop new energy, renewable energy or energy in general certification. And it's hard to implement kind of usage like that can be dual use with something stable that's not connected to the grid or not related with energy storage that become a part that need to be goes hand to hand with renewable energy as part of the future.
Just a comment about renewables. I think it's important to understand. You mentioned solar. Solar only produces energy maybe, I think it's like 14, 15 hours of the day.
No, just because I heard there's a project related to that. That's it.
Okay.
That's
solar is problematic.
Of in Bitcoin mining in Israel. That's it.
Okay. But in the context of Bitcoin mining, solar energy is quite problematic because it doesn't produce enough hours of energy, so you have to combine it with something else. You have to probably connect to the grid and in most cases and also draw power from the grid, just to put things in perspective.
You said that small Bitcoin mining operations don't work well economically, right? What is the delineation line? Like, where is it small? Where is it big? And also, related to that, it seems from what you were saying that we're going to a centralization of mining operations as you need to be bigger and bigger, which goes against the ethos of a distributed network. So how does that work together?
I can help answer the first part, and you can maybe take this. So we're thinking of it as we're really, when we talk about the where do we draw the line? We're talking about in energy sense. So we look at it per kilowatt hour cost of electricity and per kilowatt hour production, if you convert it from Bitcoin into dollars, euros, whatever. So we can, at the moment, we're looking at about 8-9 cents, roughly in that area of 8 cents. Most of the residential prices are just way beyond that. So you'd be mining at a loss. You could be located somewhere far away in Canada, North Canada, you could have cheap electricity prices. And we still do see some home mining operations. It's just that I think it's just becoming, the bigger you scale, the more economies of scale you have. And today you have really public companies or companies raising a lot of debt or equity financing, dominating the industry because they can buy bulk. They have really cheap prices on miners. They can do horizontal, vertical integration. There's a lot of interesting projects around. That gives them an edge over someone just buying. So when we're talking about home mining operations, asking what's the capacity? 1 miner, 2 miners, 3 miners. Because each miner today, like new gen miners, they're consuming maybe 3.5 kilowatt or more of electricity. And you can overclock them, you can run them at 7 kilowatt. Your home is probably a fraction of that. So you'd have 1 miner, consuming the amount of energy like a few houses in the neighborhood. The moment you have 3-4 miners, the whole neighborhood consumes less than those few miners. So that's also when retail already, it's a thing of the past mostly. Really, it's mostly enthusiasts and people like that do home mining for Bitcoin.
I want to add to that to complete your question answer, Sam. So first of all, what's really effects on miners, on their profitability? Once it's their hardware, how much it costs them, and now we need to understand how hardware is priced. And I'm not going to go too technical on it, but basically hardware is priced compared to their ability to produce Bitcoin in the total, and basically to the cost of Bitcoin. So let's say 1 Bitcoin worth $30,000, and the total mining power that is now in the network is 100, and you're going to get a machine that is 1 out of 100. So basically, they're going to charge you 1 divided to 100 multiplied by 30,000, because that's the worth. That's what you can produce from it. On that regard, we need to look on the fact that there are like new miners are joining into the market all the time. So when you're looking on the big guys like Bitmain and others, they're always oversubscribed. They always need to ship into the future. Like they're always people are like waiting with the supply to be sent. But some people are like bought miners when Bitcoin was $60,000, and now it's $30,000. So the cost of mining is less. The same miner is worth less. Some of these big guys went bankrupt, so you can buy secondhand. So that's on regard of the hardware. So it's really changed. And if you're going to go and buy 1 machine from Bitmain, it's not going to be the same if you're going to buy 1,000 machines. So that's why I'm talking about the scale. So that's one side of what's affect the cost. The second, there is actually 3 sides. The second part is the cost of energy. How much really cost you to have the energy. And the third one is the cost of operation. Because sometimes you can need to pay, let's say, rent, or you need to pay to someone to maintain or to run these systems. So if you're running it in scale and you can use the same 1 person, you already have it, hire them. So it's now you're asking yourself how many machines 1 person can run. And it's pretty high, the number. So when you're taking all these things in conclusion, that makes you to what makes profitability. And exactly as Yoni said, recently there was a research that said that if you're going to buy your energy in 8 cents a kilowatt, you're going to be break even. And most of miners today are getting their energy in about 5 cents. That's why they're keeping pretty high ratio of profitability.
And we're at the bottom, yeah? We're at the bottom.
And I just want to answer also his second part of regards to decentralization and what we believe. So yeah, when Satoshi started Bitcoin, we all thought it's going to be people going to mine Bitcoin from their computer. One CPU, one vote, right? Like that's what he said in the white paper. But today we see that most of mining happening from pools, right? And we're coming to the same question. Our pools are centralized. Can we break down the pools? And I think basically that if we're going to have really big miners, that each one of them going to compete with each other of like who is bigger, who is growing faster. That's going to create that decentralization because when you have different areas in the world, you can create that resilient of the network. Because in the end of the day, you don't want to have you want to keep a redundancy. You don't want to have one single point of failure. You don't want to have someone that is too big that it can take over the network. And that will never happen, right? Like we know that to do a 51% attack in Bitcoin is just like cost billions of dollars and probably will not going to see it. And when you're creating these extra centers or like many centers, you're creating that decentralization.
Any other questions? There is another one here.
There are two questions that are a bit out of your direction. One is something that puzzles me is what will happen once Bitcoin is getting to the full capacity of
circulation. You're meaning like what will happen once the inflation will be zero?
I think you're referring to the maximum supply of 21 million Bitcoins.
Right, because right now it seems as if there is correlation between its price and how much...
yes.
So,
it's not exactly a correlation because the hash rate keeps getting up, even though we had like this fall from 60 to 30, okay? So it does have a little variation of...
it seems as if the driver of price is the mining.
Of course.
So what will happen once the mining is stopped?
No. Okay, once the mining stopped, there are other financial incentives like
why they
mining
don't exist
fees.
today.
Like mining fees, okay? So
mining fees, exactly, yes.
This is what...
transaction fees.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Mining fee, but we are talking about 100 years from now.
Oh yeah.
I would argue with that. Okay. I would like to voice my opinion.
Okay, yes, please.
I thought we were closer.
There's been someone maybe can help me here. There's been recently a protocol. It's BRC 20, if I'm not mistaken.
Ordinals.
The ordinals have basically it's kind of NFTs coming onto the Bitcoin network. It had a big hype just a few weeks ago when they launched it, causing the network to be congested. So we're looking at the mempool of each block, and it's getting congested. People are paying a lot more for transaction fees. So we suddenly saw, usually transaction fees are only a few % of the miner revenue. The moment you're really making your money from the actual block reward. But though that suddenly rose a lot, and it just gave us a glimpse into the future. I think it's going to be a few years from now, where miner fees, I think it went up to 10, 15%.
I'm just saying when the 21 million...
Oh, okay. That will happen in a long time. So yes, Itai said price inflation. That's what's expected. So I think everyone here in the room thinks that Bitcoin will be, without mentioning any numbers, will be definitely worth much more in the future. B, if you're looking from the miner perspective, fees is going to take a larger portion of your gross margin as a miner. And I expect it to be at least 30%, I think, in the coming 2-3 years. It's going to be a major source of revenue. Especially the Lightning Network as well. That's all contributing basically to the fees that the miners make. So the incentive will be there one way around. And you can think of it that the miners will make sure that Bitcoin stays up and running and the economics incentive make sense. Because it can never cost you. No one will mine if you spend more on mining than your reward. So mining gives it kind of the backbone really of the Bitcoin ecosystem, if you will.
Okay, another small
question. 1 second, I
is
also want to refer that. Right. Okay, I also have something to that. So first of all, people are not rational. So we all can believe what we think that will happen, but we can never, we are not sure. You know, economy is like not accurate. It's like not a science. It's more of like social. Yeah, it's a social psychology. It's, we can predict how people are gonna
Government manipulation.
yeah, we can predict how people are gonna react, but we don't really know. And then we need also to remember what is the technology stack of Bitcoin and mine and Lightning, or like the new layers. Bitcoin first layer, the Bitcoin blockchain, support up to 7 transactions in a second.
Much more than that. No, it changed. Come on.
It's not much more than that.
It's not Visa, but
it's
more
far
than
from
that.
being
No,
it's
like
far from being support for
more
the
than
mass
that.
adoption. It's far from there. What is can support the mass adoption? It's the layer on top of it, which is called Lightning, and that's where the transactions are way cheaper. They're way faster. They have a higher finality, like same finality, but everything happened way faster, and that can support mass adoption. So basically, what we like, in my point of view, what we're gonna see that people are gonna interact with each other on the Lightning, where the friction of transactions gonna be few cents or few dollars, as the same as you are paying today to PayPal or some other monetary system. But if you want to use a layer 1 finality, then you will need to pay more. And just the fact that in the global world, we're going to have so many people that are using Bitcoin, we're always going to see that layer 1 finality happening, because there's always going to be a demand. Like some percentage of all the people that are going to use it will going to use the layer 1. So that's the way I see it, but who knows?
Yeah.
You had another
I
question.
want to add a personal anecdote. I want to add a personal story, really, and I think it's not really related to mining. Last year, I was in a conference in Miami, a Bitcoin conference, and the Uber driver that was driving me back from one of the days of the conference asked me where I'm coming from. I told him it's from a Bitcoin event. And he said, Bitcoin, yeah, I started using it recently. He told me a story. It's fascinating, really. He's from El Salvador, immigrant to America, and he sends money back home to his family every month. And he used to use MoneyGram and Western Union and, I don't know, PayPal or whatever he used. And someone told me, hey, there's Bitcoin. And long story short, he uses Bitcoin just as a method of transacting value, sending it to his family in El Salvador, where it's a legal tender. They either convert it to local currency or they can actually use it to buy stuff, and a lot of places are accepting it now. And the interesting stuff is that he has no idea what is mining, what is blockchain, no idea at all. For him, he makes his dollars, converts them to Bitcoin, sends it to El Salvador. And I just wanted to share this, I think, pretty fascinating story. We have a lot of new users coming on that don't understand the technology, but see it as an effective way of transacting value, of storage of value, whatever each one comes for. I just wanted to share that story with you.
Last question?
Maybe it's impossible to know, but you have statistics about the proportion on those people and especially the minor. So that mean as individual, that people that mean mine at their home.
No, but I can assume that like maybe less than 1% of mining today is home mining. I think much less than that. In terms of, it depends. There's no real statistics, but you can look at it from, you can look at services there's a bunch of companies doing payment services, so you can look at the amount of retail clients they have. I don't have any numbers for you, but that's one way to look at it. The amount of wallets. So even if you look at the price been crashing and price been low for the last over a year already, the amount of Bitcoin wallets added, new Bitcoin wallets, is increasing. And we can actually see who is a retail customer by finding some kind of subjective level of, like 0.001 Bitcoin is a retail client. You can actually look. That's the beauty of the blockchain network. You can actually analyze and have a look at how many coins, how many wallets are holding like a really small amount of coins, how many of them are active, how many of them are passive, so they just use it as a store of value, just hold it. and how many of them are transacting. Yeah, you can actually, I'm sure you can find a lot of information online. Or ask the Bitcoin embassy, they should have this kind of statistics maybe.
Yeah, this just went out a few days ago, the wallet thing, right? That it's increasing. We have 1 million wallets that holds a whole coin, okay?
Okay.
That's the news.
But that's like...
That's sort of value, of course, yeah. But it also means that they are, what I heard, that they're withdrawing from exchanges and they're holding, because it's not wallet connected to exchanges definitely, so it's the people who understand, the one who hold their own Bitcoin. Never mind, this is not the topic of our conversation right now, but we have some data on chain.
Yeah, there's a Bitcoin Explorer, I think, have quite a lot of data if you check out their website. I'm sure there's quite a lot of research on the topic as well, but it's a good question. Yeah, thank you for your question.
And about a year ago, like I think the last year, there was someone with a PC that mined the whole block.
Oh, recently.
Yeah, it wasn't
a miner. It was a miner though. It wasn't a PC.
It was a PC.
No, PC is like almost impossible. It was a miner. It was a miner. But he had a Solomon that thing. Instead of connecting it to a pool, he actually ran by himself. The chance of actually finding a block is like winning the lottery. But he found. It was a big headline. Yeah, it was one miner that found a block, and not in Bitcoin specifically. It's if you're talking about mining, you're talking about mining. Or?
Of course. No,
it's a SHA-256, and it's.
No, but she's talking about that. That's exactly what chain reactions are doing. That's why their miner is more efficient.
Chips.
She's talking about ASICs and ASICs and algorithms.
She said algorithms.
Algorithms. So
they're
algorithm is fixed. It's really something we cannot change. It's the technology behind it. The SHA-256. You can look it up. The algorithm of mining Bitcoin is fixed. It's hard coded. So we cannot change that. Mining is, so if you're talking about chips, that is developing. You saw Chain Reaction, they have quite an interesting project with chips. So chip level design, it gets really technical when we're talking about a miner, but it's...
So there are two algorithms here. It's like one is the protocol itself, which is SHA, like the hash algorithm, doing the cryptography. And there is also the miner itself, like the machine. And the machine is running a software. And in that software, we see updates, we see all the time new technology. In Bitcoin itself, it's the same protocol.
Yeah, I think we're going to
I have one more question.
You're welcome to stay and have personal chats. Thank you very much.
There's one more question from the audience. Maybe we can extend.
I appreciate it. How much time does it take for a typical operation to cover its capex?
Looking at a year and a half, 2 years now, there's no fixed number because it's if we're gonna have a bull run now, then it can be also half a year. And when I first got into mining, I think the first batch of miners we bought, we made a payback of 2 months. I was like, wow, and then that was really the entrance into the industry. Of course, not everything was sweet. We also saw longer periods of time. It really depends on when you buy in. Shauli mentioned is right now we're seeing miners at the bottom. Really bottom rock. I don't know how long it's going to stay there. Maybe they're even going to dip further. But the miners get priced per payback period. So the company selling you the miners, they know really well how much those miners are making, how much they're expecting to make. They price it as a payback period in about 1.5 to 2 years. But again, you could have second-hand miners. There's a lot of factors in play. What's your energy cost? So what's your ROI month on month? To answer your question simply, we're looking at 1.5, 2 years currently, but it can change.
I'm sorry, I have to sneak in a question related to this. If Bitcoin dips again, hard. We saw minor capitulation a few months ago. Will we see more?
Yes, absolutely.
At 5% interest rates, yes? Will we see?
So high debt levels, a lot of companies raise a lot of money. They're highly indebted. Some of them are hedged in the energy contracts they have. Some of them are not hedged, so they're on spot prices. Seeing now the energy crisis, suddenly electricity prices shoot up. Even disregarding the Bitcoin price completely and the difficulty, some miners couldn't pay the bills anymore, so they crashed. Then you have factors into play. Really, efficiency. Efficiency is the name of the game. If you're an efficient miner, you can survive any kind of dip. So, like, I'll give you a personal example. Some of our operations in the Netherlands, one of the most expensive electricity markets. I think we're pretty much the only large-scale Bitcoin miner left in the Netherlands. The reason why is because we recycle the heat, we sell the heat, we monetize it. We make money on the demand response markets as an additional revenue stream. And we're really looking at Bitcoin as an energy arbitrage game. So we have quite a unique business model, but there are minings doing really interesting things that eventually innovation and efficiency protects you from black swan events, Bitcoin price dipping, hash rate going up significantly, energy prices volatility. So you can really build your operation around, if you build around efficiency and you have a lean operation, you can survive any of those cycles.
I also want to add to that it really depends who do you think is the profile of the typical miner. And I will say that the typical miner today are hedge funds. And one of the things that they are not missing is money. When they're taking a decision that they want to do something, they will do it. And that's why we noticed that even in the low times when Bitcoin was about 16,000 a few months ago, still the cost of production of Bitcoin was about 20,000. And we saw that gap also in the last hype when Bitcoin was about $6,000 or $5,000, but the cost of production was 7, 8, or 9. And someone needs to pay these gaps. And who are paying them? The ones who are actually making the big profits. Because they're not here for one day, they're not here for 2 days or like 2 months for the quick win. They're here for the long term. They're building facilities. Now we're going to see, pretty soon we're going to hear about a designated nuclear plant that builds just to mine Bitcoin. Okay, so we're talking of like really big guys. Yep.